Hey guys, it's Wednesday. All right, I have the most hilarious first world problems going on over here. I got a new laptop. I got a new fancy headset. I'm using none of it right now. I can see how the transition from I'm on top of all the tech and I know exactly what to do and how to handle it to old lady totally happens. So anyway, next week, hopefully I'll be on my new laptop with my new fancy headset. And I've even been working in a new space here in my house to record. Not that my kitchen isn't fun, but stuff you guys really don't care about, but that's what's going on over here. Okay, so it's Wednesday morning. We are talking this week. This is episode number 25 of the Transforming Anxiety podcast. And this week we are talking about the physical and emotional sides of anxiety. There's these two sides to anxiety. And although I've got something funky going on with my hair. We're all probably very familiar with the physical aspects, the physical sensations, and the emotional feeling of anxiety. I thought it would be interesting to kind of just explore this a little bit. And we're going to juxtapose anxiety with the two experiences of hunger and fatigue and just kind of explore this a little bit. So, first thing I wanted to talk about is just what the difference between the physical and the emotional is. Because it's something I think that we know, we've experienced, but we haven't necessarily thought about or considered or worked on. So the first important part is to understand the physical part is a sensation. That's what I call a sensation. And sensations are involuntary bodily reactions that travel from the body to the mind, to the brain, right? So, physical sensations always start in the body. These are things like hot, being cold, being hungry, being thirsty, being sick, right? These are involuntary bodily reactions that travel from the body to the brain, right? Our body informs our brain of what's happening. Okay, so then there's the emotional side. The emotional, the feeling side. And feelings are emotional vibrations that travel through our body. So what's similar is that they both are felt in the body. We feel the sensations in our body. We feel the emotional vibrations in our body. But what's different about feelings is that they always start in our minds and travel to our bodies from there, right? All of our emotions start with a thought, right? So it always begins in our mind, and then it travels through our body as an emotional vibration from the mind. So physical sensations start in the body and travel to the brain. Emotional feelings start in the mind and travel to the body, right? So there's a physical aspect to each of them in that we feel what's happening in our body. We feel hot, we feel angry, right? We can feel thirsty, we can feel happy, right? These are all things that we can feel, and that's how we kind of talk about all of it. I feel thirsty, I feel hungry, I feel happy, I feel sad, right? But there's a very distinct difference between a physical sensation, that involuntary bodily reaction, and an emotional feeling. Okay, so one other key about emotional feelings is that they are always voluntary. Like, you can't control consciously when you get hungry, or when you get, although we're going to talk about that in a second, or when you get cold, or when you get sick, right? Those are things that happen to you. Feelings, whether we're paying attention or not, whether it's happening consciously or subconsciously, right? Feelings are always voluntary. So that's another important distinction. One starts in the brain and moves to the body. One starts in the mind and, no, I'm sorry. One starts in the body and moves to the brain. One starts in the mind and moves to the body. One is involuntary and one is totally voluntary. Okay, so like I said, I wanted to talk about two other experiences and kind of juxtapose this, and then we're going to bring it back to anxiety. But I wanted to start with hunger today. So we've all had, of course, the physical sensation of being hungry. We know what it feels like to feel hungry. Our body needs food. Our body needs fuel. We know what it's like to sit down at a meal and feel like we're really ready to eat, right? So that's a physical sensation of hunger. Now, I want you to consider, because we've all felt emotionally hungry as well. And this is super interesting to think about. So emotional hunger, think about this. It's when, like, have you ever been bored or stressed or anxious and just found yourself kind of pacing around, and then there you are in front of the pantry, or there you are in front of the fridge, and you're not physically hungry. What drove you to the kitchen was not physical hunger. What drove you to the kitchen was an emotion, right? And then there you had this thought that it's like, oh, well, maybe if I ate something, I wouldn't be bored. Maybe if I ate something, I wouldn't feel so stressed, right? Maybe if I eat something, I'll just feel better. Maybe it looks vague like that. And a lot of this isn't happening consciously, right? We're not paying attention to those thoughts necessarily. But you find yourself in the kitchen and you're hungry on an emotional level, not on a physical level. You're looking for food to numb another emotion. You're looking to food to kind of distract you. You're looking to food to kind of entertain you, right? It's an emotional need, not a physical need, right? So hunger is kind of interesting this way. Fatigue and feeling tired is another one that I think is super fascinating. I talk to so many clients who are convinced that they are physically tired, and there's a huge distinction over being physically tired and wanting to like lay down and take a nap or go to bed, right? Or even just to rest for a little while on the couch. That's one kind of tired, right? Another kind of tired is when you're thinking exhausting thoughts and you're wearing yourself out. There's so much of this going on, right? Thinking exhausting thoughts looks like, you know, if you've ever had that Sunday dreads, that's what I call them, the Sunday dreads, where you're on Sunday contemplating the work week ahead of you and your coworkers, the project, or your boss, or whatever's going on, and you're dreading it. And you're thinking all of these thoughts on Sunday about how terrible the work week is going to be and how much you don't want to be there and how stressful and busy it's going to be. Those thoughts are exhausting. You may be able to jump up and run a marathon physically, but you're going to feel emotionally so tired because you're thinking exhausting thoughts. Does that make sense? So there's the physical fatigue. We've all felt physically tired, right? Hopefully at the end of the day, you have that sense of, okay, I'm ready to lay my head down on the pillow and go to sleep, right? There's that kind of tired. There's another kind of tired where maybe you've overdone it or you haven't been sleeping well. Maybe you're traveling or maybe you have a baby, right? Or a sick kid or something's going on. Maybe your mind is just wandering and you haven't had good sleep and you feel overly tired, right? That's another kind of physical fatigue. And then there's the kind of physical fatigue that you feel like if you've run a marathon, at the end of the marathon, you're exhausted, right? That's a physical fatigue where you're like, I could not possibly run another mile, right? Or if you're lifting something really heavy and it's like, if this were 5 pounds heavier, there's no way I would be able to move it. There's all of these different kinds of being physically tired, the physical sensation of being tired. But it's super important, and I just think kind of fascinating to look at the emotional side of fatigue and consider how you're thinking, and is that wearing you out? Right? Is that creating more exhaustion for you? So, hunger, physical hunger, emotional hunger. With fatigue, there's the physical fatigue, there's the emotional fatigue. So, let's take this to anxiety. So, anxiety is a feeling, right? There's the feeling, the emotion of anxiety, which we've talked about a lot on the podcast, where we have certain thoughts, we have certain expectations of who we're supposed to be, we have certain ideas of how things are supposed to be going, or what other people are expecting of us. All of these different things that create cognitive dissonance for us. They create misalignment internally for us. Breeds anxiety. We think anxious thoughts. We create anxious feelings for ourselves, right? But it's important to also give credit to and understand the role of physical anxiety as well, right? There's this whole other component to anxiety, which is that very real stress response, the fight or flight stress response, where you're getting that dump of stress hormones into your bloodstream, right? You're now all amped up with things like adrenaline and cortisol. And there's the physical sensations of anxiety that you're experiencing as well. So this is stuff like having a pounding heart or shortness of breath or sweaty palms, right? So those are the physical sensations of anxiety. Now, it's important to kind of look at, like, am I in the emotion of anxiety or am I in the physical sensation of anxiety, or both, right? And I think it can be useful to recognize that the physical sensation of anxiety is often, and I'm talking about, like, think about our lives, folks. We live relatively luxurious, neighbor kids are here. It's summer. We live relatively luxurious, safe, easygoing lives, right? The idea that we're going to need this feature of the stress response is hopefully very, like, it's a feature we have, like an airbag on a car is a feature. Hopefully you never need your airbag. Hopefully you never need your fight or flight stress response. Hopefully it's something that you have, that you're capable of fighting or fleeing for your life if you needed to, but hopefully you never really need to access that. Hopefully you never actually have to fight or flee for your life, right? So aside from those super rare, maybe once in a lifetime, literally once in a lifetime situations and circumstances, everything else that kicks off, even that physical sensation of anxiety, starts with a thought. Okay? So when your brain believes that it's under threat, whether this is a real threat or whether it's just a perceived threat, that whole stress response is going to get kicked off, right? So even if you find yourself past the emotion of anxiety and you're well into the physical sensation of anxiety, it could be interesting, it could be helpful to trace that back to what was the thought. Where was the thought? Unless it's something super obvious, like I was in a dark alley and there was a bad guy chasing me. Okay, you needed the stress response, right? Except for those circumstances, it is useful to find what was the thought that kicked off the physical stress response. Your brain was so convinced it was under threat that it went ahead and opened the floodgates, and here comes all the adrenaline and cortisol, and you were off to the races, right? So I have my clients really pay attention. We do thought downloads all the time to really excavate those subconscious thoughts and understand what's going on under the surface that's creating the physical sensations of anxiety that we don't even notice is happening. We don't even know what's going on there. That's why we're doing daily thought downloads. So go back to some of the earlier episodes to remind yourself of that. But then, like, notice, am I in the physical part of anxiety or am I in the emotion of anxiety, right? And just kind of take a minute. And here's why I bring in the elements of hunger and fatigue in this episode. Most all of us, I should say just all of us, right? Across the board, every client that I've ever talked to, anybody that I've ever worked with, has some aspect of their life that just feels smooth, just feels easy. Everything comes naturally. They don't really have to try too hard. It's just on lock, right? For some of us, that's maybe finances. For some of us, maybe it's relationships. For some of us, maybe it's exercise. For some of us, it's things like hunger or fatigue, right? Maybe you have really great sleep hygiene and you don't at all resonate or relate to people who are chronically overtired, right? Maybe that just seems totally mind-boggling to you. Or maybe you're somebody who's super clean about food and you just don't really feel like there's any natural static there. You're like, I eat what I want to eat. I feel good. I eat super clean. I eat super healthfully. It's not a problem for me, right? I bring these examples in to show you you can cross-pollinate your strengths from some of these other areas into things like and experiences like anxiety. So if you're somebody who's super clean around food or who's super clean around sleep and rest, bring what you know, bring what works for you from that arena over to your experience with anxiety. right? Take your strengths from over here and use them over here. How you do anything is how you do everything. And all we have to do is learn how we've been doing it over here, right? And just remind yourself, oh, if I'm doing it over here, I can totally do it over here. I don't even have to learn anything new. I just have to apply what I already know. I have to just apply a strength I already have, right? It's a new practice in a new circumstance, but that's it. So consider the places that you really feel like things are super smooth, things are super easy for me over here, and what can you borrow from that to bring over to your transformation of anxiety? How can you help yourself with the strengths that you already practice, that you already do every day? Okay? That's why I brought in the elements of hunger and fatigue into this episode, to kind of juxtapose that with anxiety and just remind us there's a physical and emotional component to all of these things. And there's probably more. Hunger and fatigue were the first two that came to my mind and are two of the most obvious for us as human beings. But I'm sure there's others. We could explore others. But think about not only balancing these physical and emotional sides and seeing where you're at. Am I feeling anxious, the emotion of anxiety, or am I in the fight or flight stress response, right? Either way, nothing's gone wrong. You're either feeling a feeling or your body has activated a feature that you come pre-programmed with, just like an airbag, right? No problem. No problem. Don't tell yourself it's a problem, right? That's like one of the first steps in transforming anxiety. Okay, let me know what you got. Let me know what questions you've got. Let me know how this hits you. There is a worksheet that goes along with this episode. And this worksheet, I should say, it kind of goes along with this episode, right? This worksheet is because we're going deeper into this work, because we're doing more transformative work, and you're familiar with the model now, you're doing thought downloads, you're paying attention to how you're thinking, and you're really understanding how you're feeling. This worksheet is designed to take you further down that path. So it goes along and doesn't go along with this episode. It does take you further into transforming your anxiety. And I think that's what we're all here for, right? So I hope you're having an amazing week. Let me hear from you. Find me. You can always DM me here. You can find me on Instagram at khanlonmccormick. If you want one-on-one help and coaching, I literally have like 2 spots left. Things are getting pretty booked up. So if this is the summer that you are interested in getting started, come on over to kellyhanlonmccormick.com/coaching, and you can find a time that works for you, that's convenient for you, and schedule a consult call with me, and we can talk a little bit more about working one-on-one. So that's available at the website. To get the worksheet, go to kellyhanlonmccormick.com/podcast/25, and you can get your free downloadable worksheet. Okay, you guys have an awesome week. I will see you at the same time, same place next week, where we are going to talk about the volcano that is anxiety. So we're going to go into this from a little different angle. All right, have an amazing week. I will see you soon. Take care, guys. Bye for now.